It's one small step for man.
AI rebels, please.
Giant leap for mankind.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the AI Rebels podcast. As always, I am your co-host, Spencer.
And I'm your co-host, Jacob, and we're here with Dominic Revita, who we are very excited to have on the show from Plotly and many other ventures that we'll maybe touch on. Thanks for coming on the show, Dominic.
Hey, happy to be here, guys.
Now, Dominic, you have, like I mentioned, a varied background. You're currently the VP of Marketing at Plotly. You're kind of this unique blend of engineer, CTO, marketing. You've been involved in multiple very successful companies. Now you're involved with AI directly. I'm curious, can you tell me a little bit about your journey? How did you get here to Plotly?
Sure. Yeah, I started as being a developer back in the 90s, so it's been a long path since then. It was a huge wave, the dot-com wave at the time. I was writing C++ code for the US's first internet-only bank. We were called Security First Network Bank, and probably one of the first 5 in the world, but the first in the US in the late 90s. And it was amazing working in that environment. Every day was an exciting kind of new day. And I had come from, developing C programs against Sybase databases and things like that. So I was starting to do the new thing, which was object-oriented programming in C++. And it was just fortunate to be able to work at a place like that. One thing led to another. I continued my developer career, moved on to Java. Then I joined a company that I stayed with for 16 years, TIBCO Software. TIBCO is an acronym that stood for the Information Bus Company. So they were real-time data distribution. They started on Wall Street to do real-time speeds and feeds for equity trading and exchanges. The company expanded into the full software stack, business process data integration, complex event processing, visual analytics, and data science over that time. So I was a solution engineer in the field. So I'm hands-on with our products and systems with our customers, designing systems, really, solution architectures. And I got exposed to a lot of different ways of technologies and B2B data infrastructure and analytics over those years. Then I went back to, I did a startup earlier in travel technology just before I joined TIBCO. And, a few years back, I decided I'd go back to the startup world. And I
It brings you
joined
back.
Yeah, it brought me back, and I became a field CTO at a company called MemSQL, now called SingleStore, a distributed analytics company. And that is sort of the step towards marketing in that field CTO role. And I took on product marketing, and that one thing led to another, and it was adding more responsibilities in marketing. And that eventually led me to the head of marketing at Plotly.
Interesting. So tell me a little bit about what did you learn at SingleStore that you're now applying at Plotly? Is there any big lessons there?
Yeah, that was the big lesson in growth and product-led growth in particular. All the mechanics of how do you build this? How do you, what does the product have to have? What's needed from marketing? It's a very cross-functional collaboration between product engineering, user experience design, and marketing, right? Because in traditional sales-led growth, you have the website and you have content and all these other assets that are the ways your content sells for you in a way. And with PLG, it's the product doing the selling for you. So all of those similar ideas you would have about engagement and how do people learn and educate, how they know what this thing can do. You translate those, many of them, not all of them, but many of them right into the product functionality. So those things become like first-class citizens inside the product. You want to keep people in the product as much as possible. And at SingleStore, we were doing this with, basically their product is a real-time analytics database.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? You need people to build apps on top of that, but they need to understand what's different about their app. Yeah, I could just use Postgres. Why would I use something like this? So there's a lot of fast iterations, and I would say there are a lot of lessons I would take away from SingleStore, but there's just that product fast integration is one.
Yeah.
Secondly is the economics of it, right? Because you have to think about what's the cost of the usage because it's a SaaS product, so you're paying for the usage in the cloud on AWS. Do you have the right margin?
Yeah.
So it does bring the tactics a lot closer to the operations, like cloud operations and engineering.
Interesting. So with the real-time data analytics, that seems like you guys would have been pretty early in that space. So I'd be curious to hear if that's kind of if you bring a similar mindset to this AI space now that it's starting to take off more.
Yeah, AI. I've been working with various kinds of AI for 15 years, and as TIBCO moved into the analytics space, we also moved into data science and AI enabled capabilities in that time. So my view of AI is sort of that some of these things are the same things that we've been doing. LLMs, of course, are totally new in the last few years,
Right.
the generative AI part of this, but
Right.
other sub areas of AI, we've seen and we've been doing, and it's always about, do you have the right data, first of all, to do classical machine learning, in fact, right? Clean data, you need clean data. You can do the feature engineering, et cetera, et cetera. There's still a huge amount of mileage out of those other AI techniques, not just generative AI. So when I think about real-time analytics and what we were doing back at SingleStore, to me, that was also an evolutionary step.
Yeah.
Because there have been ways to do, when we think about real-time analytics, it's like, how can I process X amount of data to make X decisions in X time frame?
Right.
And serve those responses, and like, what is the time frame for each of those things? And there have been ways to do it in earlier years, like back in 2005 and 2006, we were doing complex event processing and stream processing. So today, those technologies have emerged or evolved into things like Apache Flink, But the way we looked at it at SingleStore is like, well, all of those tools were sort of very limited, could only answer a few types of questions, do simple aggregates, sum, medians, averages. If I want to do a more complex calculation on terabytes of data continuously, or many calls, and have lots of people access it, really, I need a full-fledged database with all of its features and all the expressive capabilities of SQL. And so I would say in their case, that SingleStore is a simpler way to do streaming analytics than a lot of these niche things like Flink or Materialize or things like that. And to me, that's what's changed in the database space, is distributed databases. You have specialized types for each of these different types of workloads.
Yeah.
And so there's a place for AI there too.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. Okay. So TIBCO, SingleStore. So what was it that then pulled you to Plotly? What did you see? What did you identify that you were like, okay, it's worth that? A job change is big. I just went through one 4 months ago, and it's big. It's a big decision. So I'm curious what led to that.
Yeah, well, first of all, Plotly is open source, and I think the business models of today, the most successful ones in technology, have an open source element as part of the business model. And the reason that's important is because you can collaborate and build an audience with open source.
Interesting.
And you can get a ton of feedback earlier about what is working. And it's hard to really get that reach any other way, especially in B2B infrastructure. When you're selling to developers, data scientists, analysts, there's just so much free open source. It's also a proving ground. Like, is your project worthy enough? Is it valuable enough for people to use? When everything, they could choose 5 other free open source things. Why would they choose your thing? So that's number one, is that I was looking for a company that had open source as a key component of their business model. Secondly, I was looking for a company that was in the right stage for what I wanted to do next, which was basically repeat the early product market fit to scale at tens to hundreds of millions in revenue.
Totally.
Having done that at SingleStore through that phase, I thought, okay, let's do this again in another market I'm familiar with. In this case, an adjacent market with data analytics at Plotly. And it will be similar but different set of constraints, but the growth path and the same obstacles you need to get past. So it was a good fit for that. The third was what's a company that wants a marketing leader with an engineering background and that domain expertise? Not all companies really want that. So I was looking for something really specific for a company that wanted that combined background of hands-on with this kind of product, the sales experience through solutions engineering for all that time at TIBCO, and then the go-to-market experience of how to take that and put it together for their audience. So it was a fit on that. And also, fourth, the people are great. The culture is amazing. We're a Canadian company based in Montreal, and we're fully remote, but we have offices in Vancouver, British Columbia, and Montreal. And yeah, just having worked for Silicon Valley companies and New York-based companies, it's a totally different vibe.
Really? In what way?
I just find that people are really friendly. You say that about Canadian companies, but I think it's true. There's a lot of flexibility by being remote. You have to communication. You have to do some extra things with remote companies like that to keep people in touch. But it really works in terms of hiring talent because we can get people, basically
for
anywhere.
Sure.
Time zone, you want certain time zones, but it gives us a lot of flexibility on hiring.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. So can we dig into Plotly? What's the big idea? What's like the 100,000 foot view? What's the mission? What's the goal?
Yeah. So our co-founder, Chris Palmer, when he and his co-founders really created the company, they wanted to solve this problem. They were, scientific researchers, data scientists, and what they were working in different fields like biology. And they wanted an easier, more flexible way to do interactive data visualizations. And they just felt that what was available just didn't solve the problem. There were all kinds of restrictions. There were proprietary tools that sort of led you sort of into a black box. And so that became the beginning of Plotly data visualization, and it's interactive. So if you're a Python user, you can just pip install Plotly, and that gives you the interactive data visualizations. That was the beginning. That was the first product. We now have over 1.3 billion downloads of that.
And it's
growing by millions per day. The second innovation was, I can build applications that embed these interactive data visualizations. Increasingly, serving data scientists primarily, these data and now AI teams were looking for ways to build interactive analytic applications because they were finding that traditional business intelligence tools were limited in this way. So what is an analytical application? How is it different than just a dashboard? Dashboards that you get from Power BI are very good at sort of descriptive analytics, and it's typically read-only. I know the questions. Here's what it is. I'll give it to my users. When there's a need for a custom analytical app, or we call it a data app for short, I'm looking as a user or a data team something that's more read-write. I'm reading data, but I want to also input data. I want to interact with a machine learning model. These days I might have a generative AI interface as well. And I'm trying to make a decision and act on it in the moment. So that is sort of part of what the need for a custom data app. But also we're finding increasingly the teams who recognize the business opportunities to create these are the data science teams or the data and AI. So they're acting as product managers. So we recognized the need, and this is going back a few years now, how do you enable a data scientist to create an interactive web application with their data without having to learn to be a front-end developer and learn all this JavaScript and stuff, or become a back-end developer and learn all of that. But they can, lower the barrier to creating this. And so that insight is what's really motivated Chris to create Plotly Dash. And Plotly Dash is the company's really next big open source innovation, which is a Python-based interactive data application framework. So pip install Dash, and now you can start creating an interactive web app or data app, as we call it. So an example would be UK Power Networks is an electrical grid operator and energy provider in the southwest of England. And they have network technicians, field technicians in the field, and they're looking to basically optimize customer experience for predictive maintenance, but they're also like wanting to minimize their cost of these things. So the data science team is the one who has created the models and has the idea for like, if we give this app to our technicians, they'll have the right information at the right time in the field. They can give us more data, and we can have this virtuous cycle of improvement with every interaction. So they have a series of Plotly Dash applications for internal operations, but also for customer-facing operations that are on the internet for their users to have access to, understand when they can contribute to the grid with their own solar panels or when they want to curtail that.
Okay. And what role would I know you mentioned the read versus read write. What kind of an impact does that have, like in this example that you're giving? Why is that significant here?
Yeah, that's significant because you want to, in their case, they want these field technicians to be able to enter data and do what if scenario planning. And
with the live data.
With the live data and using the models, the machine learning models that the data science team has created. So that's not something they could create in a traditional BI tool, in like Power BI or Tableau. Now, if you did a software project or application from scratch, you could do that, but it's more effort, right?
Yeah.
So Plotly Dash serves sort of that middle ground between the two that enables a data scientist to create this data app in pure Python and easily get the user interaction they need, get the collaboration features they need, get the right kind of user controls. These interfaces tend to be very custom to the use case. And so that's very important as well. We have customers who are AI GPU creators. I'll say it like that. There's a few of them. And they're very particular about what their branding is. And so one of these customers has created basically a partner supply chain application. And so they use it as well as their partners across the supply chain to monitor what's happening. And they want that exact branding and just the user controls and just the data that they want to expose to each of those users. So it is a custom data app in that way. And again, in their case, the data science team creating this kind of data product. So Plotly Dash and our commercial product Dash Enterprise is a really good fit for that scenario.
Interesting. So how does it compare to like a platform like Mixpanel, targeting similar markets, or is it slightly different in scope?
That's a good question. So Mixpanel is what I would call an in-product analytics tool, like Amplitude or PostHog or something like that, right? So that's a specific use case. Typically, product managers are using this tool and product operations, right, to monitor what are my users' use across my SaaS product. You could absolutely create a product in-product analytics tool like that out of Plotly Dash. And so that's the difference, is that Plotly Dash allows you to create any kind of analytical app like that or data app.
I see. Okay.
Rather than just an out-of-the-box one specific to a particular use case.
Yeah.
And that's always sort of like the buy versus build decisions for any application in enterprise. If there's something off the shelf that does exactly what I need and I just plug it up, boom, I'm going to use it, assuming it's affordable for my usage. But a lot of these custom data apps that our customers are implementing, there is no app for the thing because their operational scenario is too specific. And or they have a lot more customization to do. They're sort of owning their own AI, which is a growing trend, in that they don't want the AI externalized. They own their data and they want to own the AI operations on that data. So they're going to have to build a custom data app in-house for that kind of thing.
Interesting.
Interesting. So you've kind of hinted at it, but where does AI play a role in all of this that Plotly's trying to accomplish? Are you training your own models? Is that what you're enabling customers to do, is train models on their data? I'm curious where.
So So like I mentioned, Chris's original vision for Plotly Dash was to make it easier for data scientists to create these apps that would solve the read-write problem, sort of solve this last mile gap without them having to learn all this extra technology. Well, AI, like it's doing to a lot of different areas, is just completely changed what's possible.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And so what does the world look like when AI can start to analyze data for you, even in
Right.
a
Yeah.
basic way? And if you tried it with ChatGPT, you can sort of see like, oh, plot this as a bar chart. It'll create it. So if it's a small, simple data set, it may do it correctly. With larger data, it might be off. But you're like, oh, you can see where this is going. Also, AI is great at generating code if you give it the right context, right? And so the main way we're using AI today is exactly that, leveraging the power of AI code generation along with its rudimentary ability to do some data analysis, marrying those two things with 10 years of Plotly experience in creating these custom data apps for hundreds of customers and how visualizations are used, and basically taking all that, putting it together in an AI native tool we call Plotly Studio, which allows you to basically vibe analyze your data.
I like
You have
that.
this
Vibe
experience
analyze.
where, yeah, you just ingest the data set, and it presents and asks questions along with answering them with visualizations for things that you probably haven't thought of about your data set.
Interesting.
So that's how we are using AI to basically up-level what's possible for our same audience, data scientists. But now with this, it's so easy to use because literally it's a data set to an insight in about 2 minutes, that it sort of changes the nature of the engagement with data.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's big.
Yeah.
So just plain English prompts,
Well, you
and
don't
it
even need a
will,
prompt even. You can literally just give a CSV or a Parquet file.
and it'll just analyze it for you and provide it.
It'll analyze it and visualize it and give you the narrative. And
Wow.
it goes further than that. It generates natural language specifications, which now you can modify to remix or regenerate on a component by component basis of the app.
Is there anything that you've had to do to kind of engineer the AI to make sure it's always providing, salient, salient takeaways from the data? Or is it you've just found that, the AI is good enough now that it needs very little guidance to presenting salient points of data?
Yeah, it's a good question. There are lots of things that we've had to do to guide the AI and to provide guardrails and context. So there's a ton of context engineering that has gone into this. But the thing that it adds uniquely is this world knowledge in the LLM. So when we give it a data set, even without a prompt, and let's just say it's a series of floating point numbers. We test this daily with hundreds of data sets of various shapes, sizes, and we sort of understand, like, we see where the boundary or the frontier is, where it can recognize the data even with no labels. And it comes because it's recognizing, oh, this series of floating points, this looks like, this is mass body index readings. It can identify that. These look like precipitation measurements. And it will give us the words to do that. So that sort of was a really surprising thing in the early development that our engineers sort of came to see, that like, wow, this is a great starting point for how we basically explore data. It's a new way to do exploratory data analysis. And what we're providing in that first 2 minutes in that first generation is a completely functional interactive data app. And I can put if I like on the first shot, I can hit one button and deploy it to the web, to Plotly Cloud. But often you want to tweak and modify it. But now you're starting with a much higher sort of starting point, asking questions you probably hadn't thought of before.
Right. No, I love that because I've talked about this a lot recently on the podcast for whatever reason. But I'm a web developer by training, so something that I have been very interested in from the very beginning is the capabilities of language models to generate user interfaces on the fly. And I always thought that statistical applications like yours would be the first to realize this dream of mine. So it's really exciting to see it happen. It just makes a lot of sense. You know, you got a lot of unstructured data, and LLMs are really good at unstructured data. That's really fascinating that it can find those patterns even in unlabeled data.
Which, like, it makes sense. Like,
Go ahead, Jay.
An LLM, right? It's built. We're seeing this. People, I think, realize the capabilities of not just LLMs, AI in general, that like pattern recognition. We've had several guests on from the medical field where they're realizing, oh wow, it can go view 100 million photos of various types of cancer, which make it incredibly good at recognizing what it looks like when we give it new scans. It's the same thing here with data analysis. Like this is really what it's built for. This is its bread and butter.
Yeah, it does help that we have 10 years of Plotly open source code out there.
Yeah, that's huge.
Has been indexed and trained, right? And we're getting 5 million or more downloads every day. So we're seeing like our Plotly open source code is being used everywhere. You see it embedded everywhere. It's embedded in Julius. It's embedded in Retool. It's embedded in Databricks.
Wow.
Plotly might be like the world's most popular interactive data visualization library out there. And so that's sort of been a fortunate, situation when LLMs came on the scene. We started recognizing actually it can produce some Plotly code that's not so bad, but it will only do the basic stuff, and that's where we saw the opportunity to use the LLM as a building block and build what we are calling an AI native product on top of that.
Yeah, so you partially answered my question already, I think. But when you guys are generating these apps for people, does the LLM write most of the code within the Plotly package? Is it all Plotly package code, or is it supplemented with some extra Python that it knows it needs to add?
Yeah, good question. So it generates all the components, and the components are visualizations with their filters and interactive controls. And it also generates these components, which call specifications, which is a natural language. And it's really just plain English, like, okay, this is a range slider that does this and has this range. So if you want to change it, you go, yeah, that's great, but I want to modify it. You just copy and paste that text and regenerate just that component or just that filter. And it also provides the code in another tab. That code includes, Plotly data visualization, includes Plotly dash code, but it does include like boilerplate other libraries like Pandas, for instance, and NumPy, and things that you would typically use. So, and then we do also have some libraries around layout and all sorts of other things that help to give a good first experience in that first generation of the app.
Yeah.
Another thing I think is like maybe important for people to understand is like that why wouldn't you do this with just ChatGPT or something like Lovable?
That's good.
I think what you're starting to see is like, or Cursor even, right? You're starting to see that the general purpose tools that are meant to be everything to everyone aren't doing anything specific really great. Like even Lovable is like Cursor's like, I'm going to help software engineers build any kind of project. But that's for software engineers. If I'm a front-end designer, maybe Cursor is not that helpful, but Lovable is. Because it's more oriented to designers and front-end developers. And the things that they're doing more often are like things like create a website. And Lovable seems to be zeroing in on, okay, let me help create a website, right?
Right.
And now I'm going to help you generate the SEO. I'm like, okay, so they are going down the specialization route. In our own experience, I mean, of course, we use some of these tools in-house, is that, well, where's the tool for AI-powered data analysis that really, 10x's my productivity, helps me get to insights faster, helps me ask questions better of my audience, helps me understand the data better. And we didn't really see any good examples of that. And so our view of this next era of the AI, let's call it the AI powered marketplace, is that you're going to see more specialized tools based on the job to be done and the user. And that's where Plotly Studio fits, is agentic analytics, or some people are calling this, vibe analysis. Like, help me remove all the friction so I can I'm not wrench turning, as one of our community users called it. I'm just thinking about, what's the question? What is this data trying to tell me?
Interesting. Yeah. So when you say agentic analysis, by agentic, do you mean it's agentic in the sense that you upload the data set and then this AI agent will perform all the analyses for you? Or is there more to it than that?
That's the gist of it. So what happens under the covers is, well, you upload a data set, so you're presented just with a screen with a button, upload your data, and you can give it a prompt if you want, optionally. If you don't, the next step is you push a button that generates a plan, which is basically an analysis plan. We call it the outline. And that's really now where under the covers, a multi-agent system is invoked. Now, the user doesn't see any of this, and this is what makes it so easy. But what's happening is, in parallel, a series of specialized agents are being fired off for a data prep agent and profiling. Let me profile the data. How sparse is this data? Are these numbers? Should they be floating point numbers? Are they strings, etc.? Then there's the prep. Do I need to shape this data to help with aggregations? Is this time series data? The next is a data visualization agent, and then an application component agent. So all of these agents start to work to make decisions autonomously based on what it's seeing in the data, with our own context engineering we've provided, also the world knowledge of the LLM. And that's how it comes to this first 2-minute version of your app, with everything accessible and modularized and componentized, with the spec for each component and the code. So that's why we don't really market it that way, though, because we're not trying to make another software engineering project for our users.
Right. Yeah.
There are lots of good ways to go do that with Google's AI agent SDK, or Microsoft. There's lots of AI agent SDKs. We're trying to keep it super simple. It's for the people, basically the 1 billion knowledge workers who need to work with data in some way and need instant insight. This is who we're serving.
It's powerful. I can't believe you said over 1 billion users, billion downloads.
Well, we've had 1.3 billion downloads of Plotly code, but
That's
the
incredible.
audience that we're designing for now with Plotly Studio is the 1 billion knowledge workers, with several different estimates as sort of what counts, as knowledge workers. If you work at a computer, if for any job, at some point you're dealing with some sort of data that you need to plan against or analyze. Even in most of those people today use some sort of spreadsheet to do that at the most basic level, right?
Yeah.
They're using
I was gonna.
or Excel.
Yeah, my background's in accounting and finance, and I was a public accountant doing auditing not too long ago, 4 months ago. Like I said, job change. But the thought of this, just with my background, I'm envisioning being able to upload Excel-based financial statements for a company or other data like that for auditing purposes, and it just will run through, say, this is not consistent. Make sure to look at this. This is the riskier area because X, Y, Z. This has so many use cases.
Yeah, and it's really phenomenal. We're getting more and more use cases and more interesting data sets out there. It can spot trends quicker than you can sort of really explore it in a GUI interface. So we're having Power BI experts in that community come to us and say, first of all, Plotly's visuals are amazing. It would have taken me X many hours to do this parallel line coordinate plot, or this trend analysis, and to customize it with a thicker line for this trend and color and etc. And you just did it for me in 2 minutes flat, just with that kind of customization, you do need to find the words in your prompt to
Right.
do it. But if you know how to describe it in your existing tool, it most of the time works in Plotly Studio. I haven't seen many accounting data sets. I would love to see you upload some accounting
Be
data sets
interesting.
and see what it identifies. Yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of leads to a question that I had, which is, so you've talked a lot about serving knowledge workers. I'd be curious to hear, do you have any notable, and from what you've described, it sounds like mostly the people who are, hyper engaged in your community and in the open source project itself are all hardcore data scientist guys. I'd be curious to hear, have you seen any use cases that users or companies that deploy your product that target a slightly more lay user? You mentioned that Julius uses Plotly in their visualizations. I'm just curious to hear if there's any other similar use cases.
Yeah, traditionally we haven't targeted sort of the lay user.
Yeah.
We were targeting, before Plotly Studio, our audience was focused on data scientists, data and AI teams, building these custom data apps. And so our customers, you can see from the website, companies like S&P Global.
Yeah.
I've mentioned UK Power Networks, Intuit, Uniper, etc. Creating these apps in all these different operational contexts to basically take data science out of the lab and put it into action for the business through custom data apps. So we're still doing that. And it is a large part of our business. But with the introduction of Plotly Studio, it's in early access right now, we see an expansion to add data analysts, ordinary data analysts, and also the layperson who doesn't maybe think of themselves as a data analyst, but from time to time, they want to explore and analyze a data set.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And so that's a new audience for us with the introduction of Plotly Studio. So I don't have existing customers because we haven't launched this as generally available yet, but we have a lot of a growing set of people in the early access program who are sharing their results with it. So I'd point you to people like Brian Julius and Art Tinnick, who are publishing sort of, and you can find it on LinkedIn under the hashtag Plotly Studio, a lot of different variations of their analysis with Plotly Studio, and they're coming from some of these examples, they're recreating things they did in Power BI and comparing the differences. Others is like net new kinds of workflows, like Brian Julius is enabling, starting out in like Rue code as the AI coding IDE, generating a set of data or a set of code, using that code as an input prompt to Plotly Studio to create yet some other like second level derivative that we as the product creators hadn't even envisioned, which is amazing. That's why you build in the open and why you do open source like this, because it accelerates the innovation, really.
Yeah, that's why wanted to ask about non-technical users as well, because I think that it's a pattern that we're seeing across a lot of companies, is that they're starting to find that the non-technical users engage with their tools slightly differently. Just really interested to see where it all goes.
That we came across because of this new type of user in our early access program is a standard about that talks about constraining visual communication language. Yeah. So it's basically the founder Jürgen likes to talk about the analogy of music notation to visualizations, data visualizations. Right. So, hey, we've standardized around how to notate music for every different instrument, hundreds of years ago in Western music anyway, right? But why can't we do that with analytics in business or data visualization in business? It makes a lot of sense. Shouldn't there be a visual vocabulary that has some consistencies so that you can measure and compare apples to apples effectively, no matter what technology you're using? So that group is the International Business Communication Standards Group, IBCS. And so we weren't really, that sort of thing wasn't on our radar, but through the early access usage, people started saying, hey, I can do IBCS compliant visualizations with Plotly Studio. And you can do that today. And like Art Tinnick is one of the EA early users that you'll find his stuff out there, where he's created a series of IBCS compliant visuals, and we've put almost no effort into it so far. It's just that Plotly visualizations are that flexible to begin with, and the information about what the standard requires is also public, and it's been indexed by the LLM. That said, we're in touch with them, and we are going to be collaborating with them to go the extra mile to make this work in a consistent manner according to the standard. So we're really, really excited about it, but that was like a totally net new area
that's interesting,
came to us through this.
Yeah, which there's this thread throughout. I feel like it's been brought up multiple times, is the importance of open source in this innovative path for Plotly. I'm curious, one, I'm a big proponent of open source as well, but I just have so many questions because there are not many people who think an open source company can be successful. They worry that if it's just open source, anyone can take it, anyone can use it. How has Plotly become so successful? How are you generating money? How are you maneuvering this really funny world of open source?
Yeah, I think the answer to that for companies has changed over time, right? There was not really any successful open source company until Red Hat. To me, that was the first successful open source company. And for years, we were asking ourselves as an industry, I'd say, in the B2B software space anyway, who's the next Red Hat? Who could do that? Could you have an open source database? And this is like 20 years ago now, right? Could you have an open source CRM? Could you have open source this and that? And a lot of people at those times were like, oh no, there's no way. Databases are too complex and difficult and require too much effort, and you won't get enough contribution. Fast forward, now we see databases, Cockroach Labs, TiDB, Postgres has been open source since its invention by Stonebreaker decades and decades ago, and now it's the world's most popular database. And there are all sorts of forks and variants and branches of it. So but open source has changed, and it means, I think there's different aspects to think about. But if you think about your business model, which I think gets to your question, like how do you make money if it's open source? Mm-hmm. And generally, our business model is an open core model. So what that means is that we provide a core product, Plotly open source and Plotly data visualization, for free use. It's MIT licensed, meaning that it's the most permissible, and you can do whatever you like with that. And then the commercial product builds and extends it, and generally provides the functionality you need in the enterprise context. So for us, that means, how do I provide security for this Python interactive data app?
Right.
How do I integrate it with CI/CD and DevOps? How do I improve the performance? How can I create pixel perfect PDFs? All these things eventually you could build yourself given enough time and motivation. But if you want to have, a set of interactive data apps like UK Power Networks has, there's several internal, several external. You also want a central place to host them, like an internal portal. You want a gallery so that other teams don't recreate what you've already done. Like, hey, just build another data app and host it here in the app gallery. So there's a lot of these sorts of things that we're doing for our customers, but generally it follows this open core business model.
That makes sense. I think that's the path forward. That's how innovation will happen. That's the true innovation. I just don't think a closed model can pivot nearly as fast.
And ironically, OpenAI, despite its name, it's not very open. They just released this model, and it's debatable what open means in that context.
Yeah, would you say that's open?
If you look at the pure open source definition, no, it's not. I don't have everything to create this. That's not to say it's not useful. And it does help me now to run, a model like that, locally with Olama or VLLM or something like that. So it's useful. It's just let's not say it's really open source in the purest sense. I'm not sure how much that matters, though, depending on what your usage is. If you're creating a new model, you need to think like, what's the training set? What are the weights going to be? All of that. So obviously they're protecting sort of their intellectual property there by not exposing all of that. But it's the real thing they're doing is providing a closed model that's only available online through an API. So that's the real story. It's despite the name, which is a misnomer in my mind.
Yeah. Do you see users in your user base? Do you see them converging on a specific LLM provider for the generative aspect, or do you guys handle that yourself with the core product offering?
It depends on the customer, really. So we have customers who are using, Google Cloud Platform as their primary cloud, or AWS, Azure. So they tend to want to start with that infrastructure and then access the LLM through that cloud provider's private connections. So that's something that's on our roadmap to provide for our enterprise customers. It's like if you download Plotly Studio now, which I encourage everyone to do, it's free. You can use it.
I'm going to check it out after this.
Go to plotly.com.
I'm needing some data visualization.
Yeah, you can do it on Mac. It's a desktop app, right? You can do it on Mac and Windows. But when you fire it up and you load a data set, when you hit that first button, it's making a call to the public LLM. But that's fine for like individual uses, but enterprises typically want to go through the security path of their cloud provider. So like with AWS, we're going to provide that through access to the LLM through AWS Bedrock, for instance. And we haven't encountered very many customers yet who are running their own LLMs locally. We see a lot of individuals doing it, testing, maybe using it as part of the workflow to minimize their token consumption and cost. But for production apps, they're using, an API call to one of these LLMs.
So the problem is it's just production APIs are just so much more reliable than
and
local
they have the latest
LLMs ever will be.
The latest versions of the models, right? So we do think that that's going to change. I mean, of course, the cost should come down, but also it's not coming down really fast enough to make up for the huge increase in use. So we're expecting more people probably to start reducing their costs through running local models because, the hardware, depending on what you're trying to do for the use case, you could have the hardware available and just at least defray and segment off those use cases to lower your token usage.
Interesting.
Quick question: are there like longer running processes with Plotly that would be better suited to like a local LLM where it's like you turn it on, you leave it on overnight, and the next morning you come in and you have what you're looking for? Or is Plotly all focused around like really fast iteration times?
Our user experience is around fast iteration times, but I would say like internally, I mentioned before that every night we're testing hundreds of data sets and generations, and our internal AI engineering infrastructure is evolving pretty quickly to do this, and that's sort of a whole new thing our engineering team has developed. Like, what is the agentic SDLC for us? All right, that's a whole nother topic that you should have our engineering leader, Ben Postlewaite, to tell you about, which is super interesting.
Yeah, hook us up.
I will. I'll connect you. But they basically invented what it looks like inside of Plotly for that.
Interesting. Okay.
But I would say, I think that internally for us, when we think about the cost of our internal stack and our operational profile, that is where we're looking for cost efficiencies. So where we could use local LLMs if they're good enough and give us the best result. That's the thing. Like the end product experience can't suffer from these kinds of internal cost efficiencies that our engineering team would do. So, but that's the next thing we'd like to look for is that kind of thing. But on the user experience side, right now we're doing basically this data to insight, data to app in one shot experience.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other functionality we're thinking about exploring there into data science workflows. Those could be more long running, right?
Yeah.
But for now, the experience is more interactive and instantaneous in the development phase. And then you publish the app, and that app's on Plotly Cloud, and you allow your users to interact with that app.
Interesting.
Got it. I see.
Cool.
Well, as we're starting to wrap up, one question I had that I really wanted to ask you, because I think you have a unique perspective where you've been in tech, SaaS, now you've been part of this company that is kind of tech, SaaS moving into AI, which I think a lot of companies are trying to do exactly what you're doing. And a lot of them are not as successful, sounds like, as Plotly has been with the Plotly Studio. So what advice would you give to other companies, other startups that are trying to build and transition in this to maybe more of an AI-based platform, build an AI tool, similar to what you have done with Plotly?
That's a good question. I think as far as what you're delivering, focus on what is the outcome for your audience. And how can
from
AI...
the tool?
Yeah, if it's a tool, if it's a software product, right, for other users, think clearly around what type of users to solve what kind of problem, what kind of outcome. And then secondly, think about how AI could help improve, augment, accelerate that for the user. It's not about a parlor trick of what AI can do. Like everybody can sort of has been experimenting with that over the last 2 years. And there's a lot of entertaining parlor tricks that you can do with ChatGPT.
For sure.
But it's like, why does it matter? Who cares? Like, are you really helping solve a problem? Is it more than just a quick demo? Can I really use this to change my business? And I do think that's the phase that we're in now, is more AI sophistication in business decisions. People are looking, I mean, we've all seen the reports around how many projects fail. There's the MIT study that has been circulating the last week or so around, what was the stat? Something like 95% of Gen AI projects fail.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, a lot of that reason is because, it's like, oh, I have this tool. What can I do with it? Which is backwards. You have to first think about, what am I solving for the user? And what can I solve now in a better, faster way, maybe that I couldn't before, because I have access to AI. So that's my advice. Focus on the outcome. Secondly, how AI can help you do that and be a disruptor in the space.
Yeah.
And thirdly, think of like, what's the audience? How will you attract this audience if you don't already have it? Audience matters, and you can't be everything to everyone. And this is my marketing advice, right? Like, you really have to think about who your audience is. And if you're a young, early company, new company, get super narrow. Like, if you're building the product, like, just start serving a handful of people.
Yeah.
And be super close to them as you iterate. And you'll be surprised too at the feedback you get. And you'll have new ideas about really what's the potential audience you could serve. It was not in our crosshairs really to create a tool for lay people or the ordinary data analysts. But as we started to build the next iteration of Plotly Enterprise, we were iterating on the development environment. Like, how do people create the apps in the first place? They can do it with Plotly open source just from a command line. But how can we make this a whole lot easier? And it was in pulling the thread to make that easier and easier that we thought, well, should it be a GUI where you click and drag? That's sort of what the path we had been on.
Yeah.
And then that was abandoned once we realized, wait, let's try it an AI native way. If you just threw out all of that.
I love that.
And like, what is an AI native way to solve the same problem? We don't know what that looks like. But it was in that exploration that spawned this new product, Plotly Studio.
I love that.
Awesome.
People are turning it on its head. You gotta start with.
Yeah, I think that I hear and see this a lot from new startups where they're talking about like, oh, our total addressable market is 2 billion people or whatever, and they're focusing on like having the biggest numbers, their total addressable market. It's like, no. I can't speak too much. I'm not like a successful startup founder yet. But people just overlook the fact that like they need to get a slice of the pie. It doesn't matter how big the slice of the pie is to start, but like you got to get that slice.
Yeah. And I should reconcile that now that I've thrown out that 1 billion knowledge workers number. Like that is the aspirational audience we want to speak to, but that's not how we execute go to market quarter to quarter.
Right, yeah.
It is a subset of that line to where, for us, what makes sense for us as a business of where our audience already is, and how can we go faster, bigger in those areas. So without revealing too much about that, play to your strengths, right?
Yeah.
And but it is a new North Star now that we see what's possible with these kind of tools that are AI powered.
It's exciting. That's a lot of exciting stuff. I'm excited to get my vibe analysis on after this.
Yeah.
I've been needing something like this for stuff I'm doing at work. So I had it in my to-do list for today was go through the mix panel and a bunch of other stuff. I think this is what I'm looking for. Check it out. Not just saying that because you're on the podcast with us.
Yeah, well, we're like sort of we're doing an event on September 23rd called The Rise of Vibe Analytics. So that to basically talk about like what is the state of the art, and well, first of all, what does this mean? Vibe analytics, vibe analysis. What is the experience? But also like sharing from experts that we've come to know through our early access program, like what innovations are they doing by using this approach in their ordinary work. So we mean for it to be an educational session as much as an unveiling of what you can do with Plotly Studio for this.
We'll put a link. Is there like a link for that event already, or is that coming still?
It's already up. I'll share the link for
okay, sweet.
Notes.
Great. I was gonna say we'll put that in the video description and everything.
Yeah. In a similar vein, Dominic, if people want to follow you, follow Plotly, what are the best channels, best ways for people to do that?
Yeah, you'll find Plotly at plotly.com. We're on LinkedIn and all of the socials. For me, you can find me on LinkedIn, just /Dominic.
Okay.
Domenic.
That's easy.
It's pretty easy. We're on Blue Sky. We're on Twitter.
Okay.
X, as they call it.
Right.
Yeah, and we have a great YouTube channel with lots of videos like describing the how-tos, and we're starting to create more on Plotly Studio as that comes out as well.
Okay. Awesome. Excellent. Well, Dominic, we're excited to see what happens in the coming months, as especially as Studio progresses. We'll have to we'll have you on again in 3-6 months, something like that, and see what it's turned into. Because I'm sure it's going to be different than what it is now, the way things are going.
It is, yeah. I love that. I really appreciate the time.